Morena tātou, warm welcome this morning to the Gisborne District Council. Warm welcome to all our manuhiri. Thank you for joining us today. And also a warm welcome to anyone that might be joining us online. I'm going to ask Councillor Tibble to open our hui with Karakia.
Tohi atu tātou I te mauri, whakakiki I te mauri, whakakaka. Kia kā mai ngā kaupapa o te rangi nei e. He mauri whakaoho, he mauri aro mai, he mauri whakatau ki runga I te whenua e. Hei mua koe I a mātou I iho, hei kūpuru I a mātou mahi katoa. He mea tīmata, he mea mahi, he mea whakaoti I roto I a koe. Kia whiwhi hoki ai mātou I te ora tonutanga, I te mea ia ta whaitia nei e koe, ko I ukaraiti hoki tō mātou āriki. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that, Rhonda. Any apologies? Full house. Welcome, Councillor Huriwai online. We are all in the house. Any declarations of interest? And if you think of a declaration of interest and you forget to make it now, please, when we get to the paper, make sure if you've got any interest that you declare that. Okay, minutes, page 5. Let's go to minutes. These were sent out by the lovely Dee quite some time ago. You've had the opportunity to review them and check that they are a true record of what was discussed. Do I have a mover that this is a true record? Councillor Telfer, seconded by Councillor Miller. All in favour? Aye. Contrary, carried. We have no leave of absence. Acknowledgements and tributes. I'll go first. So I do want to take this opportunity on behalf of the Gisborne District Council to offer our condolences to the family of our Harbour Master Peter Buell, who worked with us until a few months ago and then moved back to his native Canada, and he unexpectedly passed away last week. So on behalf of our organisation, I wanted to just extend our aroha and our support to his wife and whānau back in Canada. And then I'll shift gears, and I just want to acknowledge our Tamararo champions, especially want to acknowledge Orbs, who has had a lot of involvement, and for the fabulous talent that we saw. Some of us only saw it online, some were there in real life. Thank you to everyone who contributed, but a huge congratulations also to our 4 teams who will be going through and making us proud. Thank you for that. Next, I'm going to pass over to Councillor Gibson, and then I saw another hand.
Yeah, I'd just like to acknowledge the passing of Michael Savage of the Waimata community. He passed last week. He was an absolute pillar of that community, and our condolences go to the Savage and the Watson whānau. Laura Watt is a past employee of the council, and those people are hurting at the moment. Yeah, Michael was an absolute legendary multi-generational farmer, a pillar behind the Waimata school, and contributed heavily to our community during the cyclone as well.
Thank you. Councillor Ria.
Tēnā tātou tangihia rā ngā mate huhua o te wāhuri no I Tairāwhiti. Ka hoki mai anō kia tātou te hunga ora. I also want to just acknowledge Tamararo, especially the kaupoi, so the volunteer crew that make that competition possible, hundreds of volunteers who come and give their time. And I also want to acknowledge all the families of all our performers. They sacrificed a lot over the 6 months that we take up to get engaged in a tamararo kapahaka performance. They come and cook for us, they look after our kids, they do so many things in the background, and without them we wouldn't be able to make that possible. Also the 4 teams who are going to Te Matatini, but also the other 12 teams who made the possibility of those 4 teams going away to a national competition, because without those numbers we would not get that many represent our region at a national kapahaka competition. And finally our organisers, our judges, and judges had a really difficult a really difficult time on the weekend, and I'm glad we had made it so hard for them, Jean. We made it hard for them.
Awesome.
And acknowledge because there were some very familiar faces across the council actually and council staff who also either were there as a volunteer or were up there on the stage as a performer, and that was really awesome to see. So I just wanted to also acknowledge those things. Tēnā tātou.
Awesome. No one else? Okay, let's get into business. So what we're going to have next is public deputations. And first I would like to invite Te Aturangi Nepia clan and whoever want to join you up here. Te Atu, I just thought I'll set the scene because not everyone, most people probably have been to a public deputation, but we usually, you can come forward, ask someone to talk to us for about 8 minutes and then allow a couple of minutes for councillors. Councillors can only ask questions. This is not a debate at this stage, it's you sharing info with us, and we then take it away. So without further ado, the clicker is yours. Can we get the presentation up? And please make yourself at home, either sit or stand. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Te mi tuatahi kei te mihi atu ki a koe ronda, mō tō Karakia I tīmata tuhui nei, no reira tēnā koe me rehet. Kia ora mō tō karanga ki me te rōpū nei, no Rongowhakaata. No reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Nā mate, kua haere te pō. Haere ki a waikinui, waikiro, waiki paumamau. No reira, haere. I'd like to thank you all for councillors for the invitation to present today on a very important subject to us, the GDC transfer station. But before I get into the presentation proper, I'd just like to invite our kaumātua from Tairāwhiti, Stan Pourau, to just say a few words on rubbish issues.
Thank you for receiving us here today. 106 years ago, the treaty was signed. 2010, I signed on behalf of Rongowhakaata our Waitangi Treaty claims. One of the important parts of that was the relationship that we would have with the GDC. The history that we had with the Borough Council and the GDC in terms of waste, from a Rongowhakaata perspective, has been not very good. The partnership has always been found wanting. I go back to the Borough Council days of the Cox Park, what was done there. That Waikanai awa is still polluted today. Then there was the Pākahu site, another blight on our whenua. So there's many others we can talk about, but just recently a survey was done of the Waikanai awa. Waikanai Te Kuri was a kapata kai. Waikanai awa, they found one tuna and one of those little silvery things that people love. That's all they found. I asked them, Kirsty Gaddam, did you find any kanai? No. That's why that stream was named, Waikanai. So the transfer station, what you're doing there, the intent is good, but I have to ask from Rongowhakaata, enough's enough. You have used us throughout your history. Where is the partnership? Why have a transfer station at Te Kuri, opposite where our kaumātua flats are? What is that saying to us? Kia ora tātou katoa.
Thanks, Ben. So on the 3rd of May, last Sunday, a hui was called to discuss the GDC Waste Transfer Station, Recycle Centre. The hui was well attended by Ngāi Tāwhiti members, Te Kuri Tuatai Marae trustees, Kāhui kaumātua, Rongowhakaata residents who lived near the site, kaumātua flat residents and Rongowhakaata iwi trust. Discussions were well considered and factual, It was clear that attendees had researched these facilities, some even going out of the district to look at actual models. It was generally agreed that there is a need for a waste transfer station / recycle centre, but we unanimously agreed for it not to be in the current site. The potential odour and noise pollution from such facilities are not healthy. The close proximity to the marae is culturally inappropriate and insulting. The close proximity to the kaumātua flats is unacceptable and disrespectful. Our kaumātua live there peacefully and do not deserve to be treated in this way. It is culturally inappropriate. The close proximity to local Rongowhakaata and other residents living in this area may be of concern to ratepayers whose houses and properties could potentially devalue with this facility in their backyard. Rongowhakaata Iwi Trust support our people's views. This is the view from the kaumātua flats. Sit down so people can see it. You can see the photo is taken from behind the flats looking through, and that's the buildings for the transfer station in the distance there. Decided not to work. Waikanae stream restoration. There are concerns of leaching into the Waikanae stream. Rongowhakaata Iwi Trust and GDC have invested in the maintenance and restoration of the Waikanae stream and the native plants and wildlife that live in that environment. There was a time, not so long ago, when the Waikanae stream was a source of food, which Stan was just talking about, for our people. Recent surveys have found that fish life in the stream is virtually non-existent because of the pollution. We are working hard to return the stream and the associated environment to its natural state. Having a waste transfer station in the backyard is not an appropriate or compatible neighbour to this endeavour. Restoring Waikanae stream. If you go onto the Gisborne District Council, if you go onto the Gisborne District Council website,
We'll get it up. Tere is just doing her magic. She's doing her magic. The clock has stopped. Waiting. Sorry. Here we go.
oh.
We'll get it back up in a second.
Thank you. So historically, the stream and its surrounds played a unique role in the traditional economy and culture of tangata whenua. The degradation of the Waikanae stream to facilitate urban growth has impacted on the values inherent to iwi. Once again, if you go to the Gisborne District Council website, you'll see ecological decline of the Waikanae stream. And I will say that the former municipal tip sites and informal waste disposal continue to negatively affect the waterway. Neighbouring industry and residential activities discharge contaminants through the stormwater network, surface runoff and unmapped pipes. That's a photo of the Te Kuria Tuatai Marae sign, and just to the left is the gateway. And in the background you can see the facility. And of course there's other residents in this particular area that we need to take into consideration. You can see the pūkeko there on the bottom left, walking around doing its business. So the risks. Just being the devil's advocate, it is important to consider all of our concerns. If all of our concerns are realised and become our reality, by then it is too late. For example, leaching into the Waikanai stream, incompatible practices of waste station versus environmental restoration, offensive unhealthy odours and noise pollution could devalue homes and properties of ratepayers. The marae and Crematoria flats become unusable or unlivable due to unhealthy odour or noise pollution. This is an unlikely result, but worthy of consideration. The cultural divide damages our treaty partnership. So that's just playing the devil's advocate. So the statement from the hui that we had on the 3rd of May, last Sunday, Nai Tāwhiti Hapu, the whānau and trustees of Te Kuria Tuatai Marae and the Rongowhakaata Kāhui Kaumātua oppose the GDC's current plan for the waste transfer station being next to the Waikanai awa. Te Kuria Tuatai Marae and the Kaumātua flats. Rongowhakaata have a history of rubbish being dumped and processed on our land by the government, a legacy we are still impacted by. We request that you respectfully reconsider your decision. We urge you to deeply consider our presentation and do the right thing. Listen to your inner voice, that feeling in your puku, and do the right thing. I believe that's called a conscience. Do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Again, Rongowhakaata welcomes the opportunity to work with GDC to find an alternative site for the waste transfer station. And finally, as treaty partners, I acknowledge that we aren't at that point of holding hands and singing Kumbaya or a Māori equivalent, but if we do right by each other, that day could be coming. So I encourage you to start learning the words. Kia ora koutou.
Kia ora, thank you.
Takapapatu ki tu araru Kana wakahara mai ki uta ki te rapa mi ki te rapa puna ki ka ki te a te au ka ki te a te puna ki e kai kama kama kami a tōna me mirere o tu rere ana waipau a o putu te a kei tūtanga ki wa hoki au mai ko ngā kuri e ka ki a mai rā e ngā maru o te moana e tako tone Kauri te haerea, aua ki te tae ngā hawhiti.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou.
Any questions from councillors of clarification of Te Aturangi? Councillor Thompson.
I've got two questions, clarification. Were there discussions with Marae and Rongowhakaata Iwi Trust in regards to potential partnership approaches prior to the purchase of 275 Linden Road?
My understanding is that I can say from my own perspective, as the chairman of Rongowhakaata Iwi Trust, no, not directly. What I can say though is that there were discussions with the marae, and the marae became disenchanted, I believe, and something happened where they stopped communicating.
So the discussions with the marae, they weren't positive and...
That's correct, yes. They were in opposition.
Thank you.
Kia ora. The proximity to a stream, some of the other potential sites could also be proximate to the stream. Will that exclude them as well for this one reason?
Thank you for that question. It's a good question. I think anywhere in Gisborne you're going to have streams. But the point here is that we are willing to work with council to actually find the right site, and we will endeavour to do that, putting our best foot forward with the council.
Ask one more. The delay of our rubbish problem is costing the region a lot of money. Can you guys commit to being expedient in the endeavour to find a correct site?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Councillor Huriwai. Are you muted?
Oh, kia ora, Te Aturangi. You say that you're willing to work with us to find an alternative site. Is that the case? Should it be still Rongowhakaata property?
Yes, absolutely. If it becomes the property of another tribe, obviously Rongowhakaata will stand back.
Yeah, but if there's another location that potentially is on Rongowhakaata iwi land, you'd be willing to work with council?
Yes.
Thanks a lot for that.
Problems have solutions. You know, whenever I've been a manager, I've said to my employees, don't bring your problems to me, bring your solutions. And this is what we're talking about. We're talking about finding a solution together. Kia ora koutou.
Kia ora, thank you for that. Next, I would like to invite Rob and Joanne, if you're going to join him.
Tēnā koutou katoa. First of all, I would like to acknowledge the support that we've had from our neighbours from Pourau, and particularly from Philip down there, in this business of not having a bridge. It has made a huge difference just to us learning from Philip and about how these things go. And also just having the support of people of the wider whānau has also made a huge difference to us, just in conversation with people. We also would like to acknowledge our other neighbours, Puariki, who have allowed us to use their whenua as our access for, to date, as I understand it, no recompense at all. They, as individuals, have been really, really supportive of us and have put up with us and the sort of nuisance value of us, and well, neighbour probably, in using that land in that way. And also then to thank the wider Tokomaru community and Hans whānau up around Rangitukia and Tiki, just for their general support of us, really. Now, what I want to do is just to go through some of this stuff. Most of you will know most of this stuff, but I just want to sort of recap on it and review how we've got here. And then I'll take a leaf out of Aturangi's book too. We want to work with you. That's what I was told to say, and we do. That's the way it's got to happen. That's what we've been asking for. I think this is the second time or third time that I've spoken here. And it so far hasn't really worked. And well, here we are, 3 years, nearly 3.5 years. Nothing happened and no plan. And I'm no younger, and we need something done. we need some action. So anyway, what happened? On the 3rd of February, on February 2023, we had Cyclone Hale, came down, brought quite a few logs down the river, and they jammed up around the bridge. There was no attempt made by GDC to clear those logs, and they certainly contributed to what happened in Cyclone Gabriel. When the logs are moving in the river, they come down, the river's about 30 feet deep before they start moving. So they tend to just whack into the bridge and just sort of sit there, but most of the flow of the river can go underneath. When they're left to lie to come down around the pier and form a dam there, then the next lot of logs causes a much bigger dam, and that's what happened, it all fell over. And, well, yeah, right. At the top of our place, I've been there for 48 years, so I was there in Cyclone Bowler, and the water levels were very much the same in Cyclone Bowler as what they were in Cyclone Gabriel, despite what people say. Above that level of the bridges, where the bridges sort of mediated it, and the water levels were very much the same. The difference was just the logs. And for those of you who drove up there and had a look, I'll draw your attention to the tens of thousands of tons of logs that were stacked along the Hikuwai River in stacks half the size of this room, every 100 metres, 80 metres, both sides of the river, that all came past that bridge. And it all came down the Waio stream from Mokomoko and from Waio, which are both big forests managed at that time by Earnslaw Limited. None of that stuff came down the other stream, which is the other sort of third of the catchment, which is Puariki stream. They both joined at the top of our place, and I went and had a look, and I'm satisfied that's the case. And then the last piece of the puzzle is that there's a large lump of old logs and silt and fences and slow shepherds and all sorts of things stacked at the top of the, just above the western span of the bridge. And that has been allowed to accumulate for years and years and years. And I've asked numerous times when we've had machinery up there to move it, because it doesn't look like anything. You stand on the bridge and there's a little wee creek and a big river bed, and it's all right. You see half a flood, and yeah, it's still, there's miles of room, but it's cut down the riverbed by about a third. And in a big flood, it has a dramatic effect. It directs the whole river into that eastern abutment. And then when the river does finally come over the top of it, it just fires into the other side and cuts logs and debris and stuff, and that's what was all tangled up around the bridge. So we have then a lot of water for sure, but it was no higher than what it was in Cyclone Bowler. In Cyclone Bowler, there was still stuff jammed in the river, in the bridge rails when I got home, but the bridge was fine because there was enough water flow there to get away. And the difference is Earnslaw's total lack of forestry management, Gisborne District Council's lack of supervision of that management, and also their tardiness in clearing the floodway. Those things. What does Pāringa mean to us? Like, why do we care? Why don't we just go, we'll leave? Well, for a start off, we can't, because it's worth nothing. We can't sell, we can't borrow on it. We've just got to sit there and wait for somebody else to come up with a bright idea, which is extremely frustrating. I should say, that in all this, I have to make a big effort to, I'm extremely angry. I can't recall being this angry, this deep down for a long, long time. But we'll control that. What it means to me is, well, for 48 years I've lived there, and for 48 years we've brought up our kids there. Anne and I have been there for 25 years with various kids, mokupuna, kids going to school, all that sort of stuff. And that, as a result of not having a bridge, we can't do that anymore. Nobody wants to visit you when you live on the wrong side of a muddy river. And so we have become much more socially isolated. It's much more difficult to get out and see people. My relationship with the place is really like this. As dawn breaks over the heavens on high, I lift my heavy load to the sky. Sun beats down with a burning glow, mingles my sweat with the earth below. And that applies to me, and it applies to all the people that have helped us establish the orchard. My neighbour Ross Mateki and his wife, who built the fence and helped plant it. Harpy and Daniel Banks, who picked the oranges for me. Rhonda Milner, who has helped me for years with beekeeping and with the various things that we do in the orchard. And a lot of that has just had to go by the way because it just becomes all the time dodging around the river. Right. And because we face a very uncertain future, we've just sort of put all expenditure on the house and the property on hold because you can't spend money and you just don't know you're going to get it back. And if we don't get it back, we're going to need it when whatever happens, happens. So we'll come to a bit more of that. And it has had a big effect on us and on Anne's relationship with her whānau because we quite often can't get to things. And you plan something, you can't plan anything. You know, my routine in the mornings is I get up, look on the GDC website, check the river level. The river gauge is broken, so that doesn't work at the moment. And check the weather forecast and then plan forward from there. And do that every day. And all right, when the weather's fine for a week, you're not too worried, but come the change, we will be. And we have to do that all the time. We bought a big four-wheel drive tractor and front-end loader to help us navigate the river when the river's in half flood and also to clear the ford. When the river's been flooded, I like to take the tractor across first because you can't see anything. And that just gives us a bit more safety and a bit more, I can roll the beach and just make sure that our truck can get through without getting stuck. Because if we get stuck, you know, and that's another 10 grand down the hole, oh man, you know, like it becomes a tragedy. Anyway, long term, yeah, line up, we've done that. What I want to do now is just review the last year, so from March the 30th. On March the 30th, myself and Philip, Judith Penny-Jones from Pourau, and my son Jed went to a meeting with David Wilson down at Reed's Keep. And we all went there to, you know, to do battle, you know, like we're going to jump up and down on his desk and get something done. And he said, "Oh, sit down, you know, you're going to get a bridge." Oh, yeah. So yeah, no, it's done. We've got the funding, we've got the designs well underway. It was 30%, I think he said, and the timings were, well, the end timing was 80% in October, November of last year. And construction was to start in, well, Q1, either January to March of this year. And there was a big, long discussion, you know, there's no point going into all of that. But, it was explained in detail how it would work. If there was a problem, it said the budget was tight. If there was a problem with the budget, that didn't mean it wasn't going to be built. It meant that the design had to be altered, changed, things had to be fiddled around with. At the very worst, and we all recollect this, at the very worst, we would get a Bailey Bridge, and he knew where he could put his finger on the Bailey Bridge. So, yeah, that's then. Hikuwai Road. Go back to the orchard and the beekeeping. You can buy this honey at Harota Pharmacy and Down to Earth. But it's part of what we produce at home. You know? It's just sort of, I could bring a crate of Feijoas and some oranges, but it's a bit more. I'll leave this here for you guys, it's a bribe. Okay, yeah. Then on May the 10th, there was a public meeting. In Uawa and then one in Tokomaru. Philip went to the one in Uawa and I went to the one in Tokomaru. Sarah Coma there announced publicly that the Puariki Bridge on Hikuwai Road was to be built. Not as an aside, but as a up front. Everybody clapped and yahooed, and I said, yeah, when I see the deck, we'll have the champagne then. July the 30th, we had another hui with David and with people from GDC. and there was whānau from Pourau, Puariki, us, and other associated whānau around. There was, we've got the minutes, there was 20 odd people there. Once again, David went right through the whole thing in detail, in more detail, how it was to happen, what the contingencies were, and the timing was still the same. Now, I should say, when we came out of that first hui on March the 30th, all of us, you just look at our faces, all of us, the load's gone, But we can start to plan. We went home, within a month we bought a water tank, and we've got it plumbed in, well, there's 10 grand gone down a hole that I don't know whether we're going to get it back. And we also sussed out the wiring in the house will need replacing one day, so I did all the sort of adding up for that. Then, the last positive communication I've seen is an email between Darren Cox and David Wilson, and I don't know which way it went, but basically it just reiterates the timings, same thing. And then we come to this Monday and get a phone call. Well, there's been indications, like since the middle of October, it just all gets just walked back slowly, and just get this feeling that, oh shit, something's going wrong. And we get a ring saying, no, it's not going to happen. And, that was bloody devastating, eh? It really was, and it really still is. I mean, it's been a hard 3 years, but that topped it up. Okay, I don't want to labour the point, but I do think we do need to know, how is it possible that you get from September the 7th, where everything's still nailed down, we've had 6 months of that, and 5 months later you go, no, I just can't see how that's even vaguely possible. A measure of the lack of openness that we've had to deal with is that I have got figures. I understand the proposals for a $9 million bridge rated at 46 tonne. Now, I've had to search around to find those figures, and they may well be completely wrong, but we should know. Somebody should have said to us, which I asked ages ago, what sort of access do you need? What do you think we can get away with? How do we, how can we work around these things? Instead of going, this is what you're going to get, but no, you're not. It just is, it's extremely counterproductive, I think. And we'll come to that at the end. So as a result of knowing we're going to get a bridge, just a few of the things that we decided. Christmas 2 years ago, the remains of the bridge was removed, and as part of that, it destroyed our flying fox that we used for getting groceries. So as part of that agreement, that flying fox was to be reinstated. So we went from having one that was about 50 metres wide, and I could hand over hand put it in, to one that's 100 metres wide, and half of that's uphill. When I first finished, the box came in about that high, and Anne's about that high. And what I said to the people when we were talking about it, I'm not an engineer, what I need is my neighbour has to be able to come to the other end of the bridge, back up her car with her kids in it after kohanga, dump the stuff from there into the box and leave. And then we need to be able to whip it over the river and go home. By the time I pull that bloody thing halfway over, I've got to go home for a rest. And it's just, it doesn't work. Well, it sort of works, but you've got to think, it's not a nice sunny day. I'm not 25 years old. And it's pissing with rain, the river's flooded, and it's blowing a gale. And it's extremely unpleasant and, probably a bit dangerous. There's just such a huge breach of trust in that, implicit in that, the way that decision was made and conveyed. Our trust in GDC and our goodwill with GDC has just been destroyed. And, you're all nice people in that, but as an organisation, of course there's some grief. And just, stress and more bloody stress. So from here, right, where do we go? Work with you. We want you to work with us, to help us. And we want you as councillors. So 2 reasons why I came here. One was that I think, I was going to say at the start actually, that It's lovely to see you all. I saw most of you at the pre-election where it's nice to see you again. Would have been nice to see you earlier. And also, except for Anne Huriwai, who did make the effort and did get there, and wrote some fairly pointed emails on our behalf. And, we want to thank her very much for that. We wanted to speak to you because we want you to hear from us rather than hear from your officers, what this has meant to us. And we don't want anybody thrown under a bus or, at times I might, but we don't go there either. What we want is that to sit down with council officers, and this will require Nadine's input, obviously, and that's where we want your goodwill to sort of facilitate that, and just go right through this thing from the start. How did we arrive at that position? And is there a sensible budget we can strike, and is there a sensible bridge we can build? Because I can't help thinking, $9 million, why would you even take that to NZTA? It's ludicrous, it's stupid. Even I think it's stupid, not on the bridge. Before that went there, we should have been involved in that. We should have been asked if we could handle less. I wish the whole thing should have been discussed, instead of it just sort of being rumour. So, we're here to ask you to prevail on Nadine, to support us in seeking a fundable and adequate bridge, and in open collaboration and collegial manner, and to work with us to do that. That's it. That's the end of the lesson. And just to, don't hate you guys, but may the road rise up to meet you, may the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your fields, and may the rain fall soft. May the sun shine warm upon your face, and may the rain fall soft upon your fields. Until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Thank you for listening. Questions if anybody's got them.
Any questions for Rob? Questions of clarification?
You mentioned on the 30th of March, Dave Wilson said you're going to get a bridge, at the very least, the Bailey Bridge, and then you mentioned on the 30th of July, sort of a few months later, Sarah Coomber announced at a public meeting, you're going to get a bridge. I'm old school, I'm verbal, you say something, you do it, but is there actually anything in writing saying you're going to get a...
Well, there are minutes from both of those meetings that we had, so the March 30th meeting and the July 30th meeting are all minuted, like minutes that we took. And there's, 4 or 5 of us here, there, ask them. No, it's true. Advice, Kia ora. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, here's your money. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I am going to invite Philip. Philip Hope, thank you, Philip.
Now we listen to the master.
I know you're busy, I know you have a big agenda today, so I won't take long. I just wanted to reiterate with our good neighbour Rob and Anne that are here, and also my whānau that are here as well as online. Puariki Bridge stood for 87 years. It has been fundamental to our farming operation. Obviously our neighbours live on Hikawai Road. It's one of 2 locations which our whānau have adopted to lot of our whānau live on low-lying land on coastal areas, on Pourau Street, Tuatini Township, on Beach Road, and that land is ancestral land, just the same as the land on our Te Karaka block. We have another block which is suitable for papakainga, and that is the bypass road, but only a very small part of that. Puariki Bridge is fundamental to our farming operation. We work in partnership with the McNeils. We have 4 families that live on both Puariki and Pourau Station. We have 6 full-time staff that need access every week. Not having access more than 70 days a year is just, it's impossible to farm. It also impacts the welfare of livestock that we graze on that block. The only option that we have is to try and cross the river when it's not safe to do so. All we're asking for is for the bridge to be replaced. We're not asking for something additional. We have confidence that we can work with Gisborne District Council and build a viable, feasible bridge that will be fit for purpose and will meet the NZTA cost-benefit assessment. We were told specifically, I have recordings of the meetings, that the bridge would be funded. We were also told that there was a backup plan, which would be a Bailey Bridge, and we would be kept informed of any changes. We've not been consulted about social impacts, about cultural impacts, about the economic business case. The McNeils take exception to the farm being referred to as marginal. Okay, it's a non-exit road, but guess what? It's the only access and egress. It's a very productive part of our farm. It would be the most productive part of Pourau Station. And we happen to boundary on to our good friends at Puariki Station. We don't have any other access and egress, and I think some parties may have thought that we did, but we don't. All we're asking for is for that bridge to be replaced. We are confident that we can build a bridge that would meet the economic assessment, and what we're asking of Council today is please direct the officers at Gisborne District Council to work with us. We want a partnership. We want to work transparently. We have the long-term future of our whānau to think of, so they have somewhere to live when they can no longer live on low-lying lands, as well as having a really productive farmland. We've spent 87 years building up the infrastructure on that block, and we can't get access. We can't truck livestock in, we can't truck livestock out, and so it's been a really immensely stressful and challenging situation to contend with, and we really feel for Rob and Anne. We feel for their health and safety, and we just really want to appeal to Council to please give us the opportunity to work with you. We're good at doing things, we want to partner, but in this case we haven't been given access to all the information, and we need your support to make this work. I guess that's all I'm going to say about Puariki Bridge, but I would say I was a little bit disappointed. Rob and Anne received a letter in February indicating the highly likelihood that the bridge feasibility would fail. What we know is you can test the feasibility with Wakakotahi, with the system, and you'll know whether it's going to pass a feasibility test before you file that application. Well, I contacted Wakakotahi. They hadn't even received the funding application from Gisborne District Council as of the 19th of March. How can we be predicting the future in February by saying you may not get a bridge when the application hadn't even been filed? What we're saying is, please, work with us. Let's have an open and honest forum. Let's have a steering group where we can sit down and work to replace a bridge that served our community for 87 years. What some people here won't know is many of our whānau lived on the flats at Hikuwai. The reason they didn't stay is because we didn't have a bridge. Now that bridge stood for 87 years and we're asking, please, will council give us the opportunity to work on a solution which would be good for everyone.
Any questions of clarification from councillors? Councillor Thompson.
You mentioned you've got an option that will meet the NZTA cost-benefit analysis and that'll pass their economic assessment. Is that due to the price of the bridge option you've got, or?
We were always told that the business case was tight, but if it was kept within cost, it would pass. But that didn't have any consideration for cultural considerations, social. None of the parties concerned have been consulted around economic drivers. One of the reasons that we partner with McNeil's Farming Limited is because we have scale. They would be one of the largest farming enterprises in Tairāwhiti. And as a result of that, the welfare of our livestock is better. Our farming practices are better. We're better resourced. We have more staff employed. We retain more staff. We have more money to put into erosion control for a geology which is coming down around our ears. We've never been given access to the business case. We've never been given the budget. We haven't been consulted. What we do know is we're confident with the contacts that we have to add value by working with council. On this occasion, outsourcing the management for this bridge hasn't worked. And the reason I say that is because the very first initial application was declined in October 2024. When we sought clarification from Rongowhakaata, they said the application hadn't been filed correctly. It hadn't even sought, it didn't follow the template that was required, so they gave it back to Gisborne District Council to have another go at it. And at that point in time, we were sent Dear John letters and commiserations for not getting a bridge. Rongowhakaata said to us, we cannot make that decision on behalf of Gisborne District Council. It is their responsibility to consult with landowners. It is their responsibility to work with you to make sure that we are very clear about what proposal has been filed. That has not happened. In the entire time that this project has been in train, we've had 2 meetings, 2, for a bridge that stood for 87 years. We need better. We're not bitter. We're not going to throw the book at you. We just want to work with you. We want to reset this project.
Any other questions of clarification? Thanks a lot.
Pourau Road was the...
Go for gold.
Oh, sorry. You all know about the bypass. The only reason we built the bypass was humanitarian grounds and to provide economic connectivity for primary industry, which employs whānau that live on the coast. The reason that I wrote to council, you good people here, is because we believe the agreement, the intent, the reciprocity value that we provided with access to our land free of charge is not being honoured. Reciprocity has been delivered back to us with liability. We have a road that has been brutalised. Now, Gisborne District Council, in my previous role, the forestry industry provided roading, trucking numbers, and that determined where priority was given to maintenance on the network. Well, guess what? North of 3 bridges, all heavy vehicles over 50 tonne come across our bypass. Now, in the time that we've had that bypass in operation, we've lost 7,000 tonnes of our ancestral soil because the hydrology of putting a road in a farm causes erosion. We have taken on lots of challenges, lots of additional costs. We've spent thousands on infrastructure, and I acknowledge Gisborne District Council have helped with some of that, but certainly not all. But what we have now is we continue to talk to Waka Kotahi. They have polite discussions with our Journeys team at Council, and sometimes something happens. The one thing that we're asking for is, can we agree to a site visit and to sit down and work out what would be a responsible, progressive maintenance program? Some of my whānau are very unhappy. They just want to close the road. And I don't blame them. But we are here to manaaki, to support whānau on the coast, to support business. But we need your support by directing your council officers to maintain our road. And you're getting paid to do it. Now, if council don't want to maintain the road, we'll do it. We have tōtika accredited contractors. We'll do it ourselves. But we can't do it on our own back. We need to work with council to maintain the bypass. And I realise times are tough, but our land is now falling down into the catchment because drains are blocked, culverts are blocked, water tables are not clear, so water is running down the road, running down the outside of the hill, and we're losing thousands of tonnes of our ancestral soil into the Hikawai River. We're not happy about that. We've spent enormous amounts of money on erosion control to try and improve the resilience of that block to manage being a bypass for heavy vehicles. And we just ask, can you please work with us on coming up with a solution where we can have a reasonable amount of maintenance. We're not asking for a state highway, but we would like basic maintenance to be done. I drive the road twice a week and collect all rubbish. Why? Because I don't want inorganic material on our ancestral whenua where that spoil ends up. We need to look after and to nurture our whenua. It's all we have. And as a treaty partner with Gisborne District Council, and we descend from Pōtai Te Ut, who signed the treaty in Tokomaru Bay, 9th of June 1840. We have the kaitaka that he wore when he signed the treaty. It's across the road at the museum if you want to go and see it. But we are here and we want to be honourable treaty partners to Council. But at the moment, it has been really challenging because no one's listening. And despite multiple requests, we haven't even been able to get a meeting on site. Now, I took a number of MPs, ministers. Todd McLeay has come with me personally and drove that road. He was horrified about the state of that road. I know he's a good advocate for forestry, a good advocate for farming. I don't want to put politicians versus council, but please work with us on maintaining this road so it can remain open until the Hikawai 1 bridge opens in December.
Any questions in regard to that? Thank you.
Ko te waka tēnei ua kuti pana he tō kāru he tō ka whakairo ki atu tonu mai koe. Hei karama yo iwi me ka Atura o te niri nena, ka hitoke rau ki te hauau, ka ruruku atura ki te waipauna, ki a tapu po tiki e au e ka putini ora ora, ka tutohi auranga ki a ka puarangi, e ka haraka ki a atua te pi o maokai e uhi tai, hi.
Our last couple of presentation for today. John, welcome. Come and take the hot seat. Thank you for the handouts you've given to councillors. So we'll stand for it, you know, suits you. Do you have a presentation? So then, so we'll just get that up and then just steer with the little arrow. Yeah. So once we're there, we'll give it a go, and then it should be quite straightforward, just a forward.
Has he got a pointer?
Don't ask me difficult questions, John. Is there a pointer on this thing? I'm just going to press all the buttons and see if there's a pointer.
Just point it towards the end.
Yeah, but I'm probably going to turn it off or wipe this memory, or I'm just going to.
You've got it.
I don't know. Does it? No, it doesn't look like it's specific. You'll just have to maybe point out. Let's see how we go. Just give it a go to see if it goes forward. Sometimes it plays little. Oh, there we go. It plays little games. Okay, John, the floor is yours.
Kia ora, tēnā koutou katoa. My name is John Wells. I'm a semi-retired civil and structural engineer. I am local, born here and grew up here. My working life here. I have been working on this project privately for probably more than 30 years. As the cheesemakers say, good things take time. And this would be the time before the extended closures and the frequency of closures of our links out of this district through to the distribution hubs for our produce in Hamilton and Auckland. It doesn't seem logical to think of heading south when you're wanting to head north. But if you look at this big picture, the actual distance or length of road getting through to the start of the freeway from Cambridge up to Auckland, it's only 50 odd K longer heading south than going direct up through the Waiweki Gorge. Now, with a bit of tweaking where the we can reduce that difference. 6K. It brings it down to just even less than 15 kilometres cheaper going the south route than going the north route. The current so this is an enlargement of the bypass, or link road as they call it. The current route south, you have to go 28 kilometres around Lake Tairāwhiti through the Devil's Elbow down to Bayview, and then another 29 kilometres back up State Highway 5 to Tairāwhiti. The green sections of this link road, 21 kilometres. The green section, that's probably 2/3 of the bypass route, already there and don't need any work on at all. the Upper East River. So there's about two, so that's an enlargement of that. So the green part, there to wipe around, 34 metres, 10 metre wide single road, 2 lane, very easy grades and easy curves. And over on the west side, there's another 7 kilometres there, Pourau Road, which is the same, full 10 metre wide sealed road, 2 lanes, very easy grades. So it's got that 7K in the middle, on the east side, about 2K forestry road down to the East River, and on the west side, about 1K of forestry road and another 4K of Berry Road, which is a gravel local country road, mostly formed, but needing a bit of widening and certainly it's work on the pavement. Now this bypass bypasses the winding road around Lake Tairāwhiti and the Devil's Elbow, and pretty steep climbs there. So if you're looking at heavy trucks fully loaded, times are slow. We're looking at time saving through this, I think, probably 30 minutes for a car and probably 45 to an hour for a heavy loaded truck. So it also bypasses the flood-prone Lower-esque valley as well. And from just where it joins State Highway 5 on the left, there is also a bypass through back roads that can take you through to Nepia if you want to head south. Again, if the Esk or Devil's Elbow are closed, you've got to bypass both ways. There's some shots of the roads, but this is the east side, Tairāwhiti through to Waikawa. Pretty easy sort of travelling. There's one gnarly little bit which is maybe 500 or 600k long, which could be upgraded at a later date, but it's not really, it's still mostly 2-lane road. This is a shot of the forestry tracks on the east side, heading down to the East River.
Is there an old photo or just old?
Yeah, both. As I say, I started looking at this some 30 years ago. Yes. That is the Esk River, and the likely grid site would be about 200 metres up here and probably 7 metres clearance above the river. It would just require a single 30-metre span, and of course approaches each side. But it would be pretty much protection from the floodplains. Yeah, it's a sketch of what I believe the bridge would be looking like. It's a 30-metre span. This is the gravel road on the west side, heading up towards mostly formed and easy country. And that's the Pourau Road going through to State Highway 5, just south of Deputation. Slightly updated car. summary, 21K and 57K. Good savings, travel time. Easy route for when one winter is closed or the Devil's Elbow. Yeah, 2/3 of it already there. We just need 7,000 to be upgraded. Yeah, cost estimate. When I first started looking at this, I was looking at a single lane, maybe 80 bridge type crossing of the river, and accepting the gravel roads for the approaches, probably around 400,000 or 500,000. Okay, 30 odd years later, we're up there, 25 to 30 million is what I think. But we are talking about a decent high level road, 2 lane fully sealed, reasonable speed alignments. So where do we go from here? I don't think we can rely on Whakatahi and Hawke's Bay to push this barrow for us. This council needs to link with Wairoa District Council and lobby central government for improvement to our connectivity. And that's what it's all about. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'm sure there are so many questions. I'm just going to start. So, you know, that's a route that we've looked at for quite some time. What do you think people that have lived in those areas would feel if suddenly we opened it up like it's a city state highway? You know, how many houses, the question that I am, how many houses, or is it mostly just a few farms and forestry?
A few farms and forestry, and the forestry would really welcome a good link across there. It's Karahohavi. They have forestry on the east side. They have most of their processing centres on the west side. When I first started looking at this, I was trying to work with them to get a basic crossing over there. They were cooperative, but there was no funding available.
Is that just a forward crossing that people can use if it's not? Was it not used there?
No, there's a forward crossing. It's not viable for logging trucks. It'd be a very robust off-road vehicle to tackle it.
Other more questions, or everyone got their questions answered? Teddy?
You said you were looking at this 30 odd years ago and the costings were about 400K, and now the rough order cost is about 25-30 million, is that? And who's done those, where have those costings come from?
That's my estimate, and it's based on, I researched rural roading, rural arterial roading around the North Island, and I also looked at the Hikuai basement. I think there was three spans, something like 50 mil. This is a single span. I'm looking at maybe 17 mil for that, for the bridge, and the rest is the roading, about 11 or 12 mil for the roading.
Councillor Ria.
Kia ora, thank you for your presentation. My question is around, given that the proposal in the area of the road doesn't sit specifically within our region, did you think about how we might partner with other councils? I know that I can see the great benefits for us because of our two major arteries do often get closed, but any idea around partnering, or if you're aware if this has been sort of talked sort of widely across our shared council areas leading down south?
Yeah, no, I haven't looked into any of that, consultation or partnering, but it certainly would be desirable, yes.
Thank you for that, John, and it's good news because next week I am catching up with Minister Bishop with all the regional leaders as well to talk about connectivity and resilience for our region. So thank you for bringing that to our... Thank you. Okay, councillors, we're going to take a 15-minute break and we'll be back at 11:30. Thank you. Okay, so we've got no extraordinary business.
How much space I'm taking up? I seem to take up the most space.
Hello? No extraordinary business. Hello? We're trying to run a meeting. If no extraordinary business, no notices of motion, no adjourned business, let's go to page 24. That is a committee recommendation that came through Audit and Risk, very straightforward. Can I have a move for that? Moved by Councillor Parata, seconded by Councillor Porosh. All in favour? Aye. Carried. Contrary? 2. Okay, next we are going to talk about, thank you, Joss. The next is the Flood Resilience Programme. Councillor Alder, I assume you will declare your interest and won't vote because it is a monetary, you will declare that?
Yes, I will declare an interest in the Tairāwhiti River catchment. Does it stop me from talking to the issue?
No, I will give you an allocation, but you should not vote because it's money that we are talking about. So I will give you an opportunity at the end to also contribute because I know you know a lot about the area, so I wanted to give you a contribution. So if we can just have that noted, thank you. Without further ado, Mr. Tim Barry, can I hand over to you straight to Joss? Joss, thank you, we're in your hands.
Kia ora tātou. Please take the report as read. This project is ready to proceed. It's gone through a detailed hydrologic modelling, extensive auctioneering and community engagement with iwi and Te Aitanga Mahaki. They are very supportive and advocate for this project. And the other item I wanted to raise is that the resource consent for this, for Te Karaka, stop bank upgrade and improvement has been lodged last month, so significant milestone there to contribute. I'm happy to receive any questions.
Well, can I just add
Thank you, Nadine.
For your worship, just in terms of the, there might be a question because it's a Black Bridges funding that we are looking to reallocate. That I can confirm that none of that was from the Puariki Bridge. There was a question arising from the previous deputation.
Thank you for that. Okay, let's start. Councillor Ria.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to move the paper and I will reserve my comments for my right of reply.
Thank you. So it's moved by Councillor Ria and she will make her comment when she gets her right of reply right at the end. Any other questions or queries that people want to raise? Questions of, I'll come to you at the end. Any clarification? Now is your time. Just to be clear, we did workshop this with Joss, so we had an opportunity to ask questions, but this is a paper and it is open to debate in the public.
Second.
Councillor Foster.
I need a second. The paper and
okay. Any more questions or queries? Councillor Alder.
Thank you. First, I'd like to just point out the disparity between approximately $40 million spent on the raising of the Waipoa from the sea all the way to past Ormond, which is numerous kilometres and costing $40 million, compared to $27 million for a relatively small area of wall around TK. It just doesn't look right. Could you explain that to us first?
Yes, through the chair. The Waipa project started in 2015. That was first put into the long-term plan. Significant construction on that kicked off in 2019. So there is some inflation adjustment required to comparison. The Waipa project didn't have a road raising, state highway road raising component, which is a significant component, close to a third of the Tairāwhiti project, as well as the significant property and compensation costs required in Tairāwhiti. The other component with the 27 million P50 estimate, P95 estimate. 95 is a risk-based estimate. It's a 95% chance of final figure cost being under that. Typically, we use the 50-50 or a most likely cost of that project, and for the baseline for that is 20 million for the Tīkaraka. So that would be a better comparison number.
I'd also add that those prices were done pre-oil shock.
Okay, Councillor Parata. Are you not finished?
I wasn't finished there.
No, carry on.
I've got two more questions. On page 146, and it is on the TRI option.
Page again?
Sorry, 32. 2.46, and it is that the preferred option for the TRI catchment is to maintain the existing flood spill behaviour of the TRI into the Opu Basin. Now, I note that this existing flood spill flooded during the last major flood 16 houses and 1,500 hectares of very productive land, and it gets written off as a floodplain. I would like to point out that our entire Poverty Bay flats were a floodplain once. After the 48 flood, riverbanks were built to protect most of our productive areas. These have been added to and built up from time to time. The TRI has had nothing, apart from the lower reaches were straightened years ago. The TRI has nothing done to it in the way of flood protection, and it has been written off as a floodplain. I believe the fund to investigate the RI needs to be spent on this awa, as should the money allocated to other flood areas. So I'm objecting to the move of funds that were previously allocated to investigate flooding in other regions, and in particular the RI. As the money allocated to other flood areas, the TK investigation has not looked at the improvements to be gained through willow management, which is the only thing that was looked at on the TRI. I believe considerable improvement in the TK situation could happen if willow management above TK was investigated. Eyewitness accounts described a wall of water suddenly topping the banks of TK. This is typical of a debris dam bursting and a sudden rush of water coming down. And then my question is, on point number 50, that no capital construction projects have been identified on the TRI. My question is, were any capital projects researched?
Yes, through the chair, stop banks were considered, they were modelled, and the results and implication of those were understood. Stop banking of the Tairāwhiti River to constrain, I guess, flooding into the Opu Basin and the spill occurring does increase risk elsewhere, pushes water downstream to the township, which is the most built up area of community there, So overtopping and risk of failure pushes the problem to others. Currently, the overtopping of the Tairāwhiti happens naturally, overtops the northern bank and goes into the open basin and then safely into the Waipawa. Are structured, or a physical spillway was considered. However, was discounted due to the uncertainties with river bed level and the fact that the natural overtopping spillway occurs now currently. And that was seen as the most reliable and safe way to manage the flood when it jumps out of the bank. So stop banks were considered, but they were seen as riskier than the current situation of discharging that water naturally overtopping it and spilling into the with regards to the earlier point to do with willows, through the Waipawa, through the Tairāwhiti River, it is a narrow size channel. Willows constrict and cause blockages and problems with that. So the promotion of removal of willows will be delivered through BAU or LTP funding ongoing to manage and mitigate those risks. For the Waipawa, willows are quite an effective natural soft erosion or armouring of bends and banks. There's a wide floodplain. There are willows right up the Waipawa upstream of Te Karaka. The widespread removal of those does come with increased velocities and potential flooding downstream, which may actually increase flood levels in the Te Karaka area. Trees in the floodplain do catch material and can act as a filter to break up that debris coming down. So there is some use of those willows upstream.
You've just put food in your mouth. Someone else want to ask a question? I'll quickly get rid of it. All good to go?
On page 27, 25, the list of projects. I was just wondering if the proposed mitigations in Tukumaru Bay for the Waiutu and the Mangahoini will improve any of the outcomes for the whānau that spoke this morning or not? Like indirectly at least. Can I ask that a consideration of those two things be brought back to the table, even if it's just via email, so that we can be aware of how what we're doing has the broader impacts along the community and the people that have issues in that community. Outside of that, I'm happy with the paper.
Any more questions or queries? Councillor Telfer.
Yeah, look, I know we workshopped this the other day, and we can see that, you know, this is a way to be able to achieve the project at Te Karaka, but the thing that worries me is that what isn't going to get done, taking money from up the coast, $5.7 million out of that budget, so what isn't going to get done because of this, and also the Tairāwhiti, taking that money from there, and it says then that the willow management and whatnot ongoing is going to be done out of BAU. I know exactly what will come when we start discussing BAU, that the conversation we'll be having in the future is, oh, there's no money. And the money that's been used up till now, $700,000 or whatever, you know, exactly where has that gone, and could we have done more of that to actually achieve the clearance of that river? So there's 2 points to it there. I'm really cautious when we say we're moving this there to fix this problem, but we create another problem going forward, which will be we haven't got enough money. So, and then these communities are going to come back to us and say, you've taken this away from us. So I'm just cautious about that, and I like that. Yeah.
Through the chair, the 450k that has been spent or vested in the Tairāwhiti has covered optioneering, hydraulic modelling, geomorph understanding, catchment assessments, and a number of various flood mitigation options have been explored and costed through that money and that investment. The options there with BAU and maintenance, operation and maintenance, unfortunately is not covered with the Crown funding. They don't cover maintenance types costs, so that type of investment or projects will always be outside of this Crown funding, unfortunately. With regards to the coast, so there's a $22 million budget there for the coast projects. Those projects or preferred options are going to be fed through a prioritisation, or will be fed through a prioritisation project at the end of this month. It's anticipated that preferred options can all be delivered within that budget. Coming back to the P95 estimate for Te Karaka, $27 million. If there is a surplus, there is opportunity to transfer or relocate that money back to the coast if required. So that option will still exist.
Councillor Thompson, oh sorry, you're not finished.
So just reading into that, so of this money, the only money that we've spent has been looking at options. We actually haven't achieved anything structural.
Correct, no physical construction works have been delivered yet.
It's quite a worry going forward. We look at the amount of money coming into this region and we seem to be using a lot actually auctioneering but not actually achieving something. It's quite... Right, it's me now.
Sorry, but can I just clarify? So through the auctioneering for Te Arai, the interventions are not capital works. The interventions that are required through that auctioneering worked out to be planting and the like, which doesn't qualify for the funding. I just wanted to make that clear. It's not that, like, if there was a capital works program, then that would have been funded.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, my comments are very similar. What's potentially missing out? Yeah, if we transfer this money, and where else could we possibly use this money? For me, I just feel there's a lack of possible other options, or like it's sort of all or nothing. There's not what other possibilities or potential uses there is of that money, and I'm just wondering if there's a positive. We just heard about that bridge earlier. I'm just wondering if there's a possibility to hold, instead of all in, hold a little bit back for potential other options that might arise, or things, unexpected things that might pop up. And then if it's not used, then transfer it at a later date. Because if we say today, once it's gone, and there's no options for that money for anything else, for me, you can start, you don't need all that money, you can start that project and feed some money into it at a later date. You don't need all that money up front. Is there a possibility to hold a little bit back for potential other options? Or
through your worship, the issue that we have is that every option that we want to do and explore requires Crown approval. And what NIF have been, this is the team that are managing the funds on behalf of the Crown, been really clear with us is that they don't want to be going back for everything that we change for ministerial approval, because we may lose the funding. So that is quite a significant risk if we decide to take a bite at a time approach to get different projects funded at different times. The minister could turn around and say, well, you haven't delivered, we're taking the funding away. So they've been really clear with us around, we want to get everything tidied up as far as practical and get one approval for it. Do you want to add anything else?
My only comment was that we need a sufficient budget which aligns with our engineering estimates before we can proceed with the go to deliver that project. The final cost may come under that estimate, but you can't go to procurement, award contracts, unless you have your budget secured.
Yeah, through the chair, just rounding off the discussion related to the bridge which you brought up as well. That was the same scenario, only the NZTA was the funder in that stage, with very strict criteria on how that might apply. And it's this council that provided that resolution to us 17 months ago to pursue the Pourau Bridge along the lines of NZTA funding. And it's very strict, and that's how that's interpreted, and that's how we got to the recent decline there. But it's not our money to spend, it's others. We need to meet their requirements. It's not our money to do as we want, to park, to decide to do something different. That's a strict requirement we need.
So, is that application confidential? Is that party able to see that application and see why it was declined and see if they...
What are we talking about? Point of order.
Sorry.
Yep, we'll get back to that. Thank you. We are talking, Councillor Gibson.
Firstly, I'm supportive of the proposal, but I just want to get a bit of clarity around what happens if we are underspend in Te Karakia. And you may not be able to give me that clarity right now, but I just want to explore the context around it. So should we be underspent, there's potential to then reallocate through applying to the Minister to put that back onto the East Coast. However, at that point, is there also the option for that Minister to be like, well, no, we've got other priorities for that funding and take it off us? Is that likely the scenario?
Through your worship, there's always a possibility that the Minister can choose to do what it likes to do with the funding if we're not delivering according to the project timelines and schedules under the contract. So we'd like to think that would be the case, and we've had ongoing conversations with the NIP staff around the possibility, if this does come over, because we've used the higher P95, that we may be able to do that if it comes in, but we'd have to have some degree of certainty around those other projects being ready to go as well.
Just further to that, within our funding agreement for Te Karakia, it specifically states that we can access that surplus. As soon as we know that there is a shortfall, the decision on where it goes is another one for this room or others to make.
Thank you for that context.
Any more questions? Councillor Telfer.
Yeah, just an interesting comment that Tim just made before was the situation that we potentially can find ourselves in with this is that those estimates were done before this fuel increase. Now, if we actually did those estimates again now, if this fuel increase is going to be an ongoing thing, that could be more like 37 million. Where do we then find that money? I'm just, we've got to be aware that most things we find end up costing us more. So that's the reality we're in at the moment. It's hard.
In response to that, through the chair, because we are finalising the design and then intend to go to market, we'll have those checkpoints at the right time. And right now we have good collateral to be able to pull estimates together on what we think it will be, and the team can be working on that. But this is also some months ahead before we'll be in that engagement. So a little part of me wants to be optimistic that something will improve. However, I don't think 2024's prices are going to come anytime soon, but we'll just have to deal with it at the time.
Any more questions or queries? Councillor Huriwai.
Kia ora, Jess, can you just remind me what the options were for Makarika? Because my recollection from the from the workshop was there wasn't one. Like, stop banks wouldn't work. Like, for the Makarika community.
Yeah, through the chair, I can respond to that. So for Makarika, there is no long-term sustainable option for that community. The river trend with the river bed and geomorphic response there of about 200 millimetres per year rise is quite a negative future for that community. There is a short-term potential option which with a ring bank, a low stop bank around that community, but that only gives a short duration of benefit, and that decision on what to do after that still needs to be made. So that short-term investment and preferred option, that decision-making will sit with the Crown. They will fund an unsustainable solution to give some protection to that community. The adaptive management approach and planning for what they do, where they head to, and when those trigger points to do that happen still needs to be made. Council has a team, an adaptive management team, and it is envisaged or expected that they will be involved with the community to support and plan for the future.
So has a short-term solution been budgeted for?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. But the community hasn't been made aware of this yet?
The focus group has. There is a community meeting coming up later this month. Yep.
Supplementary question, if I may. Just triple checking that the Puariki Bridge budget is just separate to this budget.
Yes, correct. Yes. Okay. Any more questions of clarification? Councillor Ria, you've got your right of reply.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just taking a little piece from the summary. The Tikaraka flood screen upgrade is recommended as a high priority investment within the flood resilience program, delivering substantial risk reduction benefits to around 200 properties and critical community infrastructure. There's around 1,400 people in the Tikaraka catchment area, and all of them were severely affected by Cyclone Gabrielle, including hundreds stranded on 2 hillsides, as well as the loss of the long-time Tikaraka resident John Coates. Livestock and family pets were also lost. In the days following, the stranded community lived out of their vehicles with only the belongings they had left their houses with. As the floodwater receded, many took up residence at the Tikaraka area school, or they came to town to live with whānau. And this wasn't for days and weeks, it was for months and months and months people lived like that. Should this happen in any of our communities, I would hope that we would be brave enough to make the call and prioritise our vulnerable communities when it comes to infrastructure that could provide safety and peace of mind. I really do look forward to exploring long-term funding options for future work of this nature across the region under the LTP. But finally, safe, fit-for-purpose infrastructure that protects whole communities from threat of life, both human and animal, really does seem to be bare minimum of what we should be committed to as a council. And I again will move the paper. Kia ora.
Okay, I do have a mover in Councillor Ria. I have a seconder in Councillor Foster. All in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Joss.
Thank you.
Okay, next we move to our paper on the amended Cemeteries and Crematoria Bylaw. Thank you, Jocelyn. The floor is yours. Straightforward.
Thank you, Your Worship, Morena councillors. So today's paper asks Council to adopt a minor amendment to the Cemeteries and Crematoria Bylaw of 2015. The bylaw sets the standards and controls for how to maintain public cemeteries and council-owned crematoria leased to Tairāwhiti cremation services. So during the 2025 bylaw review, a new clause was introduced limiting imagery designs on monuments to 240 millimeters by 240 millimeters. And after that change came into effect, concerns were raised that the limit wasn't practical, was inconsistent with some standard plaque sizes, and could unnecessarily limit how families expressed identity, culture, and remembrance through memorial design. So Council considered those concerns at our 12 March meeting and agreed to consult on removing that clause We ran consultation between the 17th and 31st of March, received 4 submissions, all who supported removing that clause. So staff are therefore recommending that council adopts the amended bylaw with that clause removed, and if adopted, the bylaw would be publicly notified on the 9th in a few days and come into effect next Tuesday, the 12th of May. So happy to take any questions, and we have a few members from our strategic planning team as well as our livable communities also.
Thank you. Any questions, queries? Councillor Foster and then Councillor.
I'm happy to move this. We've workshopped this quite extensively and gone through all the different scenarios for this bylaw, so I'm comfortable moving this paper.
Thank you. Councillor Telfer.
I was going to move it.
It's news you lose.
Second it.
Rob Telfer, seconder. Any questions or clarification? Councillor.
Just a clarification, is there any retrospective with these things? So if someone's got names on the wrong side, can that be pushed back on?
Thank you, Councillor Alder. I may, if it's all right, call upon our livable communities who are responsible for enforcing the bylaw, if that's okay, Tyler?
Yeah, through the chair, the process to approve headstones and monuments is done at the time of the bylaw, so each application is assessed against the current adopted bylaw. There's no retrospective powers of the bylaw.
Thank you. Any other questions or queries? Councillor Parata.
I too am happy with it. I just wanted to know about the removal of the clause that was supported by our community, which is awesome. But it's is it inconsistent with what other councils have done and are doing across the country?
Through your worship, thank you very much, Councillor Parata. Not that I'm aware of. The imagery, the clause to include the imagery restriction basically was first introduced at the workshop, and which the workshop came about because some staff members needed clarity on what could be seen as offensive ultimately, and therefore size restriction precedent, which was equal to what Central Hawke's Bay District Council does. So we did lean on a nearby council. It was discussed, and then we councillor gestured an indication of what could be an appropriate size imagery.
Thank you.
I've got a mover in Councillor Foster, a seconder in Councillor Telfer. All in favour? Aye. Contrary, carried. Thank you, Jocelyn. Thank you, Tyler. I'm going to take you to page 83, which is just a basic paper. You don't need to come, Anita, because that is just that I asked Anita if I need to change people on committees, I need to do it through a proper paper, because remember right at the beginning, we allocated spots, and there were a few councillors who asked me about it. Usually at about 18 months I do ask councillors, and we do swap these around a bit, but I have no issue with this. I'm happy to move these appointments. Seconded by Councillor Ria. Any questions or queries? All in favour? Aye. Contrary. Vote with your hands. Go, Councillor Gregory. Keep us in line. Unanimous. Thank you,
Do I
Jill.
have to declare a conflict of interest?
No, you voted for the other people. Great. Thank you for that. Thank you, Anita, and your team for preparing that. Okay, next is our Remit to Local Government New Zealand conference about long-term consultation and audit costs. And this to me is quite straightforward. It's us asking this, affects every council across New Zealand. I actually met with the audit team on Monday in Wellington, and they are definitely open to these types of discussions, especially with teams possibly amalgamating and now having to look at, do we still make them do LTPs because they're going through these amalgamations? What audit implications does that have? How do we play in with proportionality and the costs? So, but just to put it into perspective, if we pass this today, I will have my office flickered out to every mayor in Zone 3 and Zone 2, because it won't be accepted if we don't have 5 other councillors in our zone supporting it. So the fact that we're putting it forward does not mean it will be voted on at the conference. So I'll update you if it passes. Councillor Foster.
Yeah, just, I know it's just the audit requirements, but what about the whole long-term plan? I mean, we're all kind of starting to agree that LTPs are old school and so costly for councils nowadays. And so is that a remit that could be followed by this, or this is only just the audit requirements of a long-term plan?
And through your worship, when the team were looking at, what's a practical way, how could you reduce the audit fees? One of them was like, well, you'd have a less regular long-term plan and you might do it like space out that time so you're not getting it every 3 years. But that's a fundamental legislative change, and so I think anything where we've got a whole simplifying local government, we've got the basic local government reforms, that will be our opportunity within which to influence that.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Councillor Ria.
Am I right in saying that also the audit also is a huge financial burden on councils, and to spend that money when the whole process could change very quickly, very soon. So this remit and helps us and other councils to save money on the auditing process of the LTP. Is that right?
I think that would have been I'd have to ask Pauline if that was a consideration around the current context.
We had two, obviously, if you say in the 3-year plan, we audited. And in the previous one was what are you comparing the differences. You still have to do, based on the legislation, a fairly robust process, even though we weren't audited, but the cost still would have been a reduction. There will be a reduction in terms of the overall process.
Councillor Parata.
Just maybe had a side question. I understand that the importance of audit is to create accountability and transparency around the way in which we operate and the way in which we spend money. 2 things I think that's important for our constituents and our whānau to know and understand. By the way, I support the submission. But when we get the results back from the audit, how do people understand that we have done to the best of our abilities, spent their money in the right way? Because is that what the audit tells us? And that's what the audit tells us. So how is it that we as a council communicate that once we get the golden tick?
Well, we don't necessarily go out standalone, and we don't go out standalone and say we've received an unqualified audit, because people won't understand what an unqualified audit is. Really, it's for our checks and balances around what governors also need to be assured that we are doing what we should be doing.
And when the government allocate money to us, they want to know that we have a clean audit so that they can do business with us, and they often have the criteria, because I asked the Auditor General, I think if you ask people on the ground, what is it that you want audited? It is often different from what they want, but they need that high level assurance. Like if you think our, what's the word I'm after, the $274,000, the materiality. If you really ask people on the ground, they want you to audit that you've spent their contract the best, or that you've done proper procurement, which is included in that as well. But often it's that high level reassurance for credit rating for the government, but also reassurance for the community that we have passed all those hurdles. And one thing that the Auditor General said is often it is that journey that they travel with staff and councillors to highlight a few issues that they might want us to add more or change something. That is what they're also interested in, that growth in your organisation to audit. But it is a fair question. Is it what they audit, what we want, they believe they audit?
Sorry, can I have a supplementary comment maybe? I completely understand that and see the value of it and see how it positions us as being a trustworthy, capable council. And I understand that it may not audit all the things that our constituency might be interested in. However, going forward, I just think it's worth figuring out how we can communicate that for people if they do want to see it, but obviously not the audit itself. Outside of that, I do believe that there's an unnecessary, extortionate amount of auditing which creates distraction and takes us away from our ability to focus on our core business. So I support it. I'm pretty sure it's already been moved and seconded, but yes, that's it.
Any more questions or queries? I think I moved it. Seconded was Councillor Foster. All in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. Not hands when you vote. You use your hands when you vote for people. There we go. Lesson learned. And I will update you once we've flicked it out to see if it gets support or not.
Say no.
Okay, Strategic Planning Work Programme, page 143. I love this. Love the visual showing us.
At 134.
What did I miss?
Memorandum of Understanding.
Oh, I do miss stuff. Judy.
Can I just, yes. I will refrain from the conversation and the voting. My mistake, my day job.
So Councillor Parata is not participating or voting. Okay, I will open that up to you, Nadine.
Thank you. So, this is a noting paper about that outlining the MOU, which is a non-binding document but demonstrates council support to the Tairāwhiti Community Commissioning Limited. So you may have recalled that there was a presentation to council a couple of council meetings ago with Judy Campbell and Willie Tiaho presented on the great work that they have been doing towards social commissioning agency. So we've looked at options and we explored what this might look like for council, and the position where officers came from was that an MOU would be the best positioning for council in this place to demonstrate commitment and support for the initiative, not necessarily bound as a shareholder, which were the provided.
Any questions? Open. Councillor Huriwai.
My question is around the fact that Te Rūnanga-Nui o Ngāti Porou are not a part of this SIA proposal, and my understanding is that they too may be submitting a proposal. So what happens if they come and ask us for the same level of commitment, given they are the largest iwi?
I do not have an answer.
Well, I'm just saying that, is this something that we need to make a decision on right now? I mean, are discussions happening with Ngāti Porou around the SIA proposal?
I just want to call a point of order, Councillor Huriwai. What you've brought up is a very important conversation, but it does not directly affect the paper in front of us. That is a separate conversation, so I just want to call that point of order.
And I can say that the MOU between council and the community commissioning just reflects the discussion specific to those parties. It does not exclude us from having discussions with other parties, and we'll cross that line if and when it comes to it.
Well, I just want to, it is relevant, but that is a good answer, because there is the possibility that Ngāti Porou may come and ask for an MOU as well. And I'm just making sure that the door is open for everyone who might be submitting an application through the SIA.
So,
Is that what you're saying, Nadine?
Through your worship, so that's why the MOU is appropriate in the circumstances. It doesn't tie us, council down. Council's not choosing favourites. We're saying we support what this, the Tairāwhiti Community Commissioning are doing, but it doesn't, and different arrangements may coexist. So there is still the opportunity, if council so wishes, to support Ngāti Porou, if Ngāti Porou does proceed forward.
Point of order. This paper is around a memorandum of understanding between the Tairāwhiti Community Commissioning Limited and the Gisborne District Council. And what we are voting on, the recommendation is we note the proposed MOU between Tairāwhiti Community Commissioning Limited and Gisborne District Council. My apologies, but the conversation about Ngāti Porou does not sit within this paper. It is definitely a valid conversation that we need to have at some point, but I'm back to my point of order, is not in relation to this kaupapa. Tēnā tātou.
I disagree. I do believe it is relevant, but I'm happy with the answer that Nadine has given.
Thank you for that. Thank you, councillors. Any more questions of clarification or any issues? Councillor, please say your surname because I have forgotten already. Alder. Councillor Alder.
Thank you.
Not Boulder. Go for it.
Page 141, and I guess it's just a clarification or making sure we're not doubling up on things, but 9.914 is about research analysis and decision making around well-being. 9.22 is research and collecting data. Now, TT does this well-being thing. Are all these bodies talking to each other
Yes,
well ahead of time on who's doing what research?
Yes, through your worship. So TT is in direct discussions. I believe they might be looking at a shareholder model. I'm not sure where that's at, but we are collaborating.
Good, thank you.
Councillor Mio.
I think a memorandum of understanding is appropriate in this circumstance, and I just wondered about the genesis of going out to the council community organisations around a shareholder arrangement when that hadn't been discussed in the engagements earlier. Just wondering how that the process to that and what a shareholder situation would have looked like, if that can be described briefly. Judy.
I'm happy to cover that off. So we had initial conversations with Judy around what the options were and what would give backing to the proposal that was being put forward to government, and on balance and with legal support and advice is that the shareholder model would create a liability for potential liability, which could be associated with reputational risk, so forth, for the council, and we would normally not be a shareholder of entities that are directly related to the business of council. For example, GHL, we are a shareholder in GHL, Local Government Funding Authority, BOPLAS. Those are the types of entities that councils are shareholders in, in direct relationship to the work that they do.
I wonder if Judy could answer a little.
You can ask the chair.
Shareholding
through the chair.
Yep. Judy.
Question for me? Just that the genesis of so a shareholder discussion hadn't come up during the engagement processes, and so just to then be asking community about shareholder arrangements. I just wondered what happened like that.
In general, to stand up the incorporation of the company, we need initial shareholders and initial board, and those invitations to a broad range of iwi, philanthropy and social service providers is going out next week. So the expectation is that 3 iwi will take up shareholding. The invitation is being made to Ngāti Porou. It's up to them whether they take it up or not. Trust Tairāwhiti have indicated they will be a shareholder. Sunrise is interested, and then there's about 60 plus social service providers who will also be invited. So the shareholding on the basis of the discussions that we've had with staff has now been set at those three sectors as opposed to an inclusion of a local government sector. So we're happy with an MOU as a statement of support. The data question, there is actually a working party now between Trust Tairāwhiti, GDC, Manaaki Tairāwhiti, the Iwi Māori Partnership Board, and Council looking at the way in which we use data regionally and invest in it. So that's part of this process. And so there'd be an expectation that we'll probably do an MOU with Trust Tairāwhiti separate from its shareholding around things like strategic investment and data sharing. And then the last one would be an MOU with the public sector in terms of co-commissioning, because it's not likely that this entity will take over commissioning in any holistic way for quite some time. So the aim of the whole process is a networked, efficient, effective local decision-making process. That's the...
Any more questions? Councillor Huriwai, do you have another question? Or are you just giving me a Bart Simpson wave? Oh, there we go.
Sorry, I didn't lower it. Yeah.
Good. If I've got no more questions or queries, did I miss the mover? Moved by Councillor Gregory, seconded by Councillor Ria. All in favour? Aye. Thank you, Judy. Thank you. Thank you, Nadine. Okay, now we move into... Elise, I loved when I saw this. I'm a visual person and it was really good, even though it's scary. It is really good to unpick. So thank you for adding that. Go, Jocelyn. Thank you.
Your Worship. So this paper is for information, and its intent is to present Council with a single integrated strategic planning work program. So to give councillors ultimately a clear line of sight across our full program of strategic planning work, and also to provide clarity and visibility of how the strategic planning effort is being allocated during this period of change. That includes resource management planning, transport planning, bylaws, policies, strategies, support for the long-term plan, and also the work needed to prepare council for the upcoming resource management system reform. So the prioritised work program brings together work that's previously sat across several streams and presents it as one coordinated program so that councillors can also see the scale, the sequencing, dependencies, and capacity pressures in one place. So it's structured in four main areas. Firstly, around the plan stop exemption delivery under the Resource Management Act. Secondly is our Te Ara Hau program, which is our readiness for the new resource management system, our strategic planning support for the long-term plan, and then our non-LTP strategies, policies, and bylaws. And that includes transport planning. So we've prioritized our work into three categories. Firstly, the non-negotiable work, statutory obligations, our bylaw reviews, plan stop exemption, long-term plan inputs, and also the regional land transport plan. So this work must proceed because delay would create legal, funding, and reputational or delivery risk. Our second category is reform-aligned work, and that's the work that supports council's readiness for our new planning system. That includes evidence development, spatial planning, foundations, and key environmental planning work streams. So this work should continue, but it needs to be carefully sequenced and in line with how the government is sequencing reform. And the third category is deferrable work, and that includes lower priority policies, strategy, or bylaw work that could be delayed, bundled, or reshaped if our capacity becomes constrained. So we have just introduced you, I know she's been at the table a few times, Elise Miller, who's our strategy team leader. Great job to you and your team. who is also here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Awesome. Elise, is there anything you wanted to add on top of what Jocelyn said?
No, Jocelyn has covered it.
Great. Okay, councillors, any questions? As you can see, we've got a lot ahead of us, a lot to interweave in a very uncertain future of local government. So thank you for trying to give us some clarity about what, and I do want to acknowledge how difficult it must be, Nadine, for you and your team to carry on and know where to push and where to pull and how to make sure you have the capability that if things pick up, you are there to pick that up, but also keeping all this going because we have to sign off a LTP at this stage at the end of June. So I do want to acknowledge the massive amount of work just went into pulling this together and getting some clarity, but also helping us understand it better. I really appreciate it. Councillor Parata.
Oh, I just wanted to move the paper and acknowledge you and the team for the ongoing mahi you do to try and create, awareness for us. It's such a complex piece of ongoing mahi that changes its face every time I seem to look at it. So I appreciate the subject matter experts that you have in your office and also the ongoing support that we as a council receive so that we can try our best to make as many good decisions as we can. I just want to move the paper and thank you for the work you do.
Any other questions or queries? If not, is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Gibson. All in favour? Contrary? Carried. Thank you for that. Thank you, Nadine. Okay, I move that we go into public. Seconded by Councillor Gregory.